Hi and welcome back to the Goalkeeping podcast. I'm Paul Sherratt and I am missing my sidekick, Martin Brennan, because I'm joined by Northern Ireland international, Jackie Burns. Those of you looking on YouTube, you're going to see this wonderful backdrop behind us, and in fact we are at BK Hacken in Gothenburg, which is where Jackie plays her club football. So welcome to the Goalkeeping podcast.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for coming along.
What a beautiful day. What a beautiful setting, hey? Not bad for a training ground.
You've had a good day for us so far. It's a bit of a cold in the past couple of weeks, but weather's picking up again, so I'm happy to be here.
Well, and we enjoyed your win last night, so we arrived yesterday to see you 3-1 win yesterday.
Yeah.
Pleased with the result?
Overall, I think we're happy enough to get the 3 points. Bit of a shaky start, as you probably saw, but like sometimes it can't be pretty football, but we were just happy to get the win and we'll go on to the next one.
Second in the league, progressing nicely, and then someone's put this big break in the middle of the season, the Women's Euros, I believe they call it.
Don't know what that is.
Don't know what that is. Listen, we'll pick up that on that later, but I just wanted to sort of take you back, really. I'm intrigued. I sent you a message a few weeks ago and said, dig out a photo of you as a young goalkeeper, and you sent me this great photo. I don't know how old you were. How old were you in the photo? Do you know?
It might be 7, 8.
7-year-old, started out where?
Cookstown Youth.
Okay.
The boys team. Yeah, so I think that was like one of my first ever games for them. As soon as you sent me that message, I was like, I know what picture I'm going to get, because that's one I always look back on. And whenever people ask me whenever I started, that's the straight away I'm like, yeah, this is me among a lot of other boys. I think there's another couple of girls in the picture, but it's just the gloves just stand out and everything. It's just amazing.
It's a great photo, and we'll post it on our channel so everyone will get a chance to see it. But I guess why? I mean, you were 7, 8 years old. Why? What happened? What was the attraction? Did you like diving around? What was it that made you say, you know what, I want to play football?
It all kind of started. So the boys team, Cookstown Youth, they had like a development centre on a Saturday morning, and one of my close friends, he was going to, and I think my mum kind of asked, could I tag along? So just to get me out of the house, keep me busy, keep me away from her, really, give her peace.
Yeah.
But I went along with him and seemed to enjoy it a bit. And then, you know, like the games, you're just playing little small set of games, and it's basically you're switching around the goalkeepers, switching around positions to get a bit of a feel for everything. And I went in the goals and I just started enjoying it. And they were like, "Oh, do you want to switch?" And I was like, "No, I'm okay here, so I'll just stay in the goal." So came home after that session and said to my mum, "Oh, I'm enjoying playing goalkeeper." And she looked at me and she was a bit annoyed, actually. She was like, "Well, you're away to play football and you're standing in goals. You're not doing a lot." But I think now she'll say something different. She's
cool with it. She's okay. And you were telling me she's been out to Sweden. She's been to Gothenburg to see you.
Yeah.
Very proud, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's nice to have her out. So she knows where I'm at, and obviously it's a big difference for me being out here doing something I love. So yeah. I think for her to come out and see where I'm situated, and now she'll probably come back because she's like the city. So
I don't blame her. Beautiful city.
Yeah,
beautiful city.
Exactly.
Okay, so 7 or 8, we're playing for Cookstown. How did it go from there? I mean, at what point did your other team? Were you the only girl in the team at the time?
I think for a few years it was me and another 2 girls. I played with them for a few seasons, and then it sort of split off. It was getting a bit more serious with the boys team, so I stayed a bit more focused with them until maybe under 12s, and then that's whenever it was like the pinnacle point. You have to move to a girls team, and I was fortunate enough that I was already involved with a girls team as well, with Mid-Ulster ladies who were also situated in the town, and both teams were very close with each other, and it was kind of handy because the boys team was a winter league and then the girls team was a summer league. Okay. So I just went in and out through both of them. So it was very very simple. Really.
So actually you were playing all year round, which probably helped with your development then, do you think?
Yeah, it really did. Yeah, it was nice, and I had a good support system with the woman, with Mid-Ulster ladies too. One of the staff, she lived very close, so she helped me out a lot and took me to all the training sessions, even took me to all the matches. It was very handy.
Yeah, fantastic. And at what stage did you start thinking, oh, I'm quite good at this, I'm quite enjoying this? When did it really start to get serious for you?
That's a hard one. I think when I started getting into like the county excellence programs, which is like your baseline for going into the international setup. So I started it when I was maybe 13, 14, and I was in every Friday evening with a session with them, and that's just so I would join up with like a lot of people in my area and broader till just train. We were like the selected few that were good enough to compete at that level. So that's kind of when it became a main focus to, right, well, football could take me somewhere. So I was able to step into that, go into the excellence program, then that got me spotted in for the under-15 squads in the Northern Ireland setup, and from there it's just built on ever since.
That's great. And is it easier now, do you think? We're talking 12, 13 years ago. As a young girl coming through, it actually sounds you had quite a nice pathway. I know maybe if you'd been in another part of Northern Ireland or another part of the UK, it might have been more of a challenge because you had Mid-Ulster ladies to step into. I know it's difficult for 8, 9, 10-year-old girls to maybe progress because they're playing more and more. They're playing boys football through to a kind of an older age. Or maybe it's easier now. What's your feeling about that?
I think now it's definitely a smoother transition. Like, we've even seen it over the past year or so. A lot of younger girls are wanting to play football, and that's like put a lot of emphasis onto a lot more clubs to have a girls program. So I think we're able to see that now, and there's a lot more girls programs coming through, and then that means there's a lot more involvement, and it just makes the transition into the international setups a lot more easier because they're going from playing with girls and they're growing with them and they're developing with them. Like, I still say that me playing with the boys was a pinnacle thing for me because it toughened me up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like whenever you're a young boy, you do treat everyone the same. Like, I was treated like one of the boys when I was younger, so I enjoyed that. And yeah, they might have looked at me at the start, like walked out with the other my team, and they were like, "Oh, they have a girl on their team," and especially, oh, she's the goalkeeper. That's even kind of funnier.
Ping a few in and test her.
Exactly. Yeah. So they were like, "Oh, well, we'll really get into this game. Like, we'll be fine." And then once they saw that I was a bit fearless and was pretty good. I was like, they were like, "All right, well, now we have to take this game a bit more seriously. Like, this isn't going to be an easy game." So I think me playing for the boys team was something that helped me. Like, it challenged me a lot, and even going into bigger games now, it's like being a big stepping stone into the development of my game as well.
It's an interesting one because I think there's a feeling we're in this transition, and I've been involved in football in a different way from a brand perspective for a long time, but I think the more and more I talk to the female athletes that we have on board, but just generally, do you feel you're at the start of a bit of a wave? Do you feel in some way your generation are pioneers a little bit? The game's changing rapidly around you?
I think so, especially with the success that we've had with Northern Ireland. I think that's really helped the development of the women's game back home, because like before that we wouldn't really have had a lot of support with girls football, but now since the women's team's doing so well and we're putting ourselves on the map, like I think that's just helping a whole lot of people and a whole lot of young girls saying like, well, these, like, they're from Northern Ireland, like they've done it, so can I. So I think that's a good point for us, that we're being that their stepping stone for the younger generation coming up.
Yeah, definitely. We'll come on to the success of Northern Ireland a little bit later. So you pulled on your Northern Ireland jersey at 15, you said. First Northern Ireland squad at 15. How did it move on from there then? Take me through your teens and that next phase in your development.
Yeah, so I started 14, 15 was when I went in the under 15 setup with Northern Ireland. It was like a Bob Doherty tournament, so it was a little like tournament between Wales, Scotland, Republic of Ireland. So it was a nice little tournament to start me off. It was always quite challenging with them, like, because you're also close-knit countries.
Always some competition there.
You're always trying to compete against them. So I was kind of like, okay, right, this is going to be exciting. So I think that was always something to look forward to, and especially whenever you're so young, you're trying to act like a professional in a sort of sense. You're like, oh, well, I'm playing for Northern Ireland, I'm going to act like I'm really like involved with the team. So yeah, that started that off, and stayed with them for 2 years. Really successful. We had a really good squad that went up through the age groups to the under 17s then, and that's when you kind of started your European qualifying campaigns with them. So I went in with them at 16, and I think that was our first year. We were pretty successful, and it was a shock to everyone. So I think that was the first year we'd ever qualified for like the elite stages, which was like the next step on.
Yeah.
Like, and I think we were shocked at ourselves, but at the same time, like, it was a big result for us. I think in our group that year was like England, Italy, and Israel. So it wasn't an easy group, but we got a result against Italy, and I think we tied England that year. And then all we had to do was go out and get a result against Israel. And I just remember we were playing in Coleraine Showgrounds that day, and we found out that England had lost and we had won, and we'd actually topped the group. So it was like, this is like we've qualified, but not only we've qualified, we've also topped our group. So that was like an amazing experience to have that, and then to go and play in the elite stages in France. It was just next level too. Like, you're playing against an amazing team, and then we had Spain in our group as well, and Finland, and they were all just off top of the game. It was just like amazing to be a part of. Yeah.
So you're 17 then, playing how many times, playing how many times a week? How seriously? Obviously you were taking it pretty seriously because you're playing for the national team. You just qualified for an awesome tournament. But I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
how much were you putting into it, I guess, is the question.
At that point, that's whenever our development wasn't what it would be like now. So we were only in maybe like 2-3 times a week, and trying our best to stay with each other, like maybe a gym session once a week, and then we were on the pitch on the Sundays, just so that we were able to get our focus in. And then maybe before we went away, we were coming in for a residential meeting maybe for the weekend, so we were getting a double session 2-3 times a day, 2-3 times in the one following each other. So I think that was kind of helping us. So at that point, it was kind of like we were taking it as seriously as we could with the time frame that we had, and it was just trying to get like that support system as well. But now, as we know, like, it's just built up again, and I know there's a lot of ones in the younger groups now, and they're in maybe 3-4 times a week, which is a big difference. But that's something that we lacked in back then, and probably saw that was why we fell behind so much whenever it came to like stepping in the elite stages, that like we weren't like France, who were probably in more times a week or focusing a lot more on it, whereas now it's a lot more challenging, and we are like, our girls are definitely competing with a lot higher ranked teams now.
Yeah. So you were, I guess, then thinking education, what do I do? Look towards the States. Talk me through that journey. Was that because you felt you wanted to spend more time? You know, there's an argument that American colleges perhaps better set up to help athletes develop. You know, there's plenty of documented cases across a load of different sports. Was that the appeal, or how did that come about?
Initially, it wasn't at all. It wasn't an appeal at all. I remember getting a message asking, was I interested in going to America? And I was like, no way. Like, at that point, when I was thinking about my further education in the university, I was like, right, well, I'm going to go to England. There's a good setup there. I want to focus on my studies, but... Anywhere?
Where were you going to go? You didn't know?
It was more of, I was thinking more around my degree at that point. But now, if you had asked me what I was going to do and what I ended up graduating in, it's completely different. So
tell me. I don't know the answer to this, so I'm intrigued.
So I whenever I was coming out of school, I wanted to be in radiography. So I was a young athlete. I always got injured, so I had a lot of experiences in hospitals, X-rays, CTs, MRIs, and all that was very, very appealing to me. And it still is, actually, to this day. But I just always wanted to go down that route of being in the healthcare. And I had applied for different places in England and kind of all over the place. Like, it wasn't one specific place I really wanted to go, and it was just more, if I got into this uni, well then I would look into what clubs was around it. So it was more not really focusing on, right, if I go to this football club, I can go to this uni.
So it was uni first, then club, as opposed to the other way around.
Because, like, I would always want, it's always like looking at the bigger picture as well. Like, yes, you want to play football for as long as you can, but you're not going to be a footballer for the rest of your life. Like, God forgive if I had a career-ending injury. Like, I always wanted to have something to fall back on, and in that case now I've two things to fall back on, to where if I want to go, I can go down the sports route or I can go down the business route now, because it's something that I think is important, especially if you are going down this route of playing football as a career. Like, it's so unpredictable of what can happen, and to have something such, like, of any degree, it's nice to have and reassuring whenever you want to go into the real world.
So you're looking at England. Someone has said come to America. No. How did it? But you ended up in it. You ended up at an American college.
Yeah. I distinctly remember it happening because I was sitting at my kitchen table studying for my A-levels at the time, and it was a real good focus. I was like, right, I just need to get through these and I can go to England and start going from there. And then I got a phone call, and it was they just said, like, hey, I'm calling in regards to your interest in America. And I was like, I've already had this conversation, I don't want to go. But then it's kind of one of those things where, is this a sign it's come round again, maybe I should do it? And I'd said to them, look, I don't really know, I've kind of said no already, but now it might sound a little bit appealing. And at that point, I'd already had a friend who'd went out as well, who grew up with in the under 17s, under 19 setup. So she committed to going to America, and I was like, oh, well, maybe this might be appealing as well. And then he'd mentioned, like, the university, and I was like, right, I can look into the university and see what it's like and if it's appealing to me. And funnily enough, there was a girl out there who was also from Northern Ireland, and she was doing her master's at the time, and I got in contact with her, and she was like, yeah. And it turned out that the same uni that wanted me before wanted me again. So I was like, I think this is like an opportunity that I couldn't really turn down for the second time. So then, yeah, the coach had texted me, arranged a FaceTime, and he was telling me everything about it and just really hyped up the place. And after talking about it with my mum and dad and all, they were like, well, at the end of the day, if you don't like it, you can always come home. Like, you don't have to stay out there forever. So yeah, I ended up, packed up my bags, went to America in January 2016, and stayed out there for 4 years and liked it so much I went there for an extra 2 years.
And this is where? What college?
I started off at Carson Newman University in Tennessee, and then after 4 years I moved to Lee University, also in Tennessee. Kind of not far from each other, only like 2 hours down the road, but I mean...
And what did you study?
I started off, Carson Newman, I done my bachelor's degree in exercise science, and then went to Lee University and done my master's in business administration.
Fantastic.
And so I finally graduated from that at the start of May, so...
And this all that stemmed from those guys finding you through football, I guess. They tracked you down and thought, we want to enhance our soccer program. Found you, courted you, got you there in the end, I guess.
Yeah.
Without you, it sounds like almost you sort of didn't realise, or it was just happening, and then it happened, and it was okay. Yeah, you've done the sell on me, I'm coming.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those things. I think a lot about, is it a sign? Is it not? Like, is it meant to be? So it's always one of those things, like, if it's meant to be, it'll come to you. So it's, so far, that's kind of been what's happened to me. And I always kind of say maybe it's a sign from God as well. Like, he's throwing this at me maybe. And then I was just, like, the first time I was like, nope, don't want to go. And then the second time he's like, right, you can maybe go to this college this time. And yep, it's happened. And now, like, I have a firm belief that he just puts everything in my path as well. So it's been handy in that sense. And he's been nice enough to hand me this lovely opportunity in Sweden now. So I'll take that with 2 hands and see where it takes me.
So that was the next step. So you're in college in the States. I'm intrigued. How is that coming backwards and forwards with the national squad?
They were very supportive through my whole time in the States. And they had a good connection with both universities, to where they were like, yeah, she can go. And it was kind of a smooth transition each time. Over the past year, though, it's like we were back and forth a lot, and like it does take a toll on your body mentally and physically. Like, I think that was the main challenge, where you were adapting to each time zone a lot, and I think that was the main challenge when I came into it a lot. Like, schoolwork, you could fit in schoolwork wherever you could, and I know a lot of camps, whenever I was in with the Northern Ireland squad, I would always, free time wasn't really free time, it was more like study time for me, so I would be sitting down doing all my work, but at the end of the day it kept me busy. And I know, especially when we had playoffs against Ukraine, it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because it meant I wasn't overthinking these games would be a pinnacle point in my life, but I had schoolwork to do, so it was like, right, you focus on your schoolwork instead of focusing on the little details that were in these games. So I think schoolwork was a good help to me whenever I was going through all this stuff.
And I think that's a really interesting one. So we got a lot of listeners to the podcast, and I know viewers of the YouTube channel as well, and I think I'm sure it comes into athletes' minds. You've said it. It was really important for you to make sure that you got an education, a good education, because at any point in time, things change.
Yeah.
So you're obviously really focused on that, which I think is really commendable. I think that's a great takeaway for anybody. I think the point is things might change, so have that backup and support.
Yeah.
What was COVID like for you? Were you stuck in the US? Did you miss your family, or were you at home, or how did that play out?
So fortunately, I was home. I just graduated from the first university in December 2019. So then I came home straight away before Christmas, and then got a job with my mum, and then COVID hit. So it was kind of one of those things that was kind of fortunate at the same time, because I was home, I was with my family, I was in a nice environment, but I was in a job that was also allowed to work. So I was always kept busy during that busy time. So it was challenging for a lot of people, but I think for me, it was a point where it helped me, to where I was working with my family, but I was also able to focus a lot on myself and get myself back into shape, because at that point I was kind of out of the game for a while. So I was able to focus on myself, get back into who I was, and where I wanted to be and really recharged myself and got back into playing football again.
So you trained hard through COVID.
A lot of running.
Solo, yeah, I was going to say solo by yourself, just trying to keep fit or get fit again and be ready.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that was with the club too. Whenever I came back, I signed for Glentoran, so they kept us busy. We had a lot of challenges. Back then, Strava became a big thing, so it was always track your Strava. We're going to have these challenges to where maybe you have to run like an interval and you'd have to record it and then post it into your group to make sure you got the points for it. So I think having a group like that it just kept you going as well, because you wanted to go out, run a bit, do something for yourself, but you were also doing it with a team, so it was exciting.
I'm adding you to my Strava. I'm gonna track you down after this.
I don't even think I have Strava.
You don't have it anymore.
I think I might have deleted it.
It was a really good challenge coming on there. I was going to add you and throw a few running or cycling challenges at you.
I did have Strava, but then I was like, nah. As soon as COVID kind of ended, it just sort of disappeared off. But I went and bought myself an Apple Watch now, so I'm able to track myself on that.
You did it on the Apple Watch. So there would have been one thing on your mind, I'm sure. Well, there have been lots of things on your mind, but during COVID, Women's Euros, it's happening this summer. Clearly you'd have been thinking about it, you were getting yourself fit. Just tell me about the last 12, 18 months of the journey and how you've ended up here. I guess there's 2 points to the journey, right? One is how you've ended up in Sweden, here we are in Gothenburg, and the other is how you've ended up playing in what I think will probably be almost certainly the most high profile women's tournament certainly we've ever seen in Europe, but possibly globally. I just think the exposure is going to be huge. So a lot of excitement, I know, because we've talked about it whilst we've been out here, but just run me through that journey.
Yeah. If anyone ever said that Northern Ireland would qualify for a major tournament, we all probably would have been like, it's not really going to happen. But I mean, we came in to that qualifying campaign and we just got a new coach, so we were like, well, we've nothing to lose really. Like, we're going to try new things. We're going to see what happens. So we went into the first game against Norway and took a little bit of a battering. I think it was like 6-0, and then went away and played Wales and drew that game. And at that point, before that they even started, it was like Norway and Wales were going to qualify, and that's who was going to go through in that group. But after we had played that first Wales game, that's when our belief was like, maybe we could challenge for second in this group. So came back. I wasn't involved with the next games against Norway and Wales, but again they took a bit of a beating against Norway, but they were like, right, we're going to go out and we're going to try to get a result against Wales, and they ended up drawing that game at home. So then that left us, we had an advantage with away goals with the Wales, so we were like, right, if we just win the rest of our games, we could be going to the playoffs. Then COVID hit, and there was a long delay and everything that was going on, but eventually we got through it and played Faroes and Belarus home and away and won all them games. And I just remember the Faroes away game was our last game of the campaign, and it was like, right, if we win this here, we're going to the playoffs. So we went in not overlooking them, because Faroe Islands, they're a bit of a small country, but they always come out with a bit of a bite in the performances, and we did give ourselves a bit of a shaky start. We gave away a goal very early on, and we were like, okay, right, wake up now. This is what we got to do. So ended up, I think it was 4-1. We ended up winning, and I just remember it was the best feeling ever, knowing that we were going to go to the playoffs. Didn't know we were going to play at that point, so we were like, right, we'll not overlook that. But it was just knowing that we were going to playoffs was even more amazing and just exciting to know. And then fast forward, when the playoffs were being announced and all the teams were we were finding out who we were playing, I just remember I had to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, because I was in America at the time, to just to sit and wait to see who we were playing. And I just remember seeing, like, we had our thoughts in our heads, like, right, if we get Czech Republic, it could be a hard game. If we get this, and it was like, ideally we maybe want Ukraine. And we're like, okay, so we're going to hope for Ukraine and see what happens. And next thing, we pulled out Ukraine, and it was like, oh my goodness, like the stars are aligned for us. So,
had you played Ukraine before?
we'd actually played Ukraine in 2020. So we went to Spain and played them in a friendly cup, and I think they beat us like 3-4-0 that time. But we knew from there we had developed so much, and then even when we played that game, we didn't have a lot of players available at the time. So we went out and we were like, all right, well, we know who we're playing. That's a plus. Like, we have footage, we know the players, like, we had all that their knowledge about it. So I think that was the exciting part, and we wanted to go out and make a name for ourselves. Like, yeah, they beat us here, but we can go and we'll challenge them in a playoff. So away we went to Ukraine and had a challenging game against them. Thank goodness we got the second goal, because it just set us up for coming home and just trying to get the result at home. And I just remember as soon as that final whistle went, like, it was disbelief, like complete disbelief in what had happened, and that we were actually going to go to a major tournament. And just from going from losing 6-0 in the very first game, thinking this is going to be impossible, to go into playoffs, winning, and
At home in the
in
National Stadium.
Yeah. And then
Good crowd, great
at that
atmosphere.
point though,
Oh, was
it was
it COVID?
still COVID,
Oh, it's
so
no,
we didn't even have, like,
no,
it was behind closed doors.
Yeah, of course
so
it was. Yeah.
I think that was just the one bit that maybe didn't make it as, like, amazing, that we just didn't even have, like, our family or our fans around, like, because we couldn't even have our family in the stadium either.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was just flying back and forth, so I didn't even get to see my family at the time. It was just a hard time. It was a great time, but a hard time too, because you just, at that point, you want to be with the people you're closest to. And yeah, I'm thankful I was with my team at the point, but it's times like that you want to go over and give your family a hug and be like, we're going to a major tournament.
You were in, you qualified. The first time any Northern Ireland women's team ever qualified for a major tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. How many of the girls, I'm intrigued, how many of the girls that you played with at under 15 are now with you? Do you know? Can you remember?
I think right now there's maybe 2 or 3. Yeah. We did start off with a big group, but it's just one of those things, like, you either get picked or you don't. And yeah. I'm still glad I'm with the small amount of girls. Even one of them is very local with me. Like, we grew up at the same club, and we even moved to the same club when we went to the bigger league. So it's nice to go through that journey with her, and that we're both all being well going to go to England together and celebrate it like that. So going through that with a small group of people is nice. It's like we've went through it from the start, and now we're going to be playing in big tournaments.
And how are we feeling? You've got Norway, Austria, England in your group.
It's a bit of deja vu, really. Like.
Yeah, we've already mentioned several of those teams.
Yeah, challenging. It's going to be challenging. But I think what we really want to bring out of it is that we're not there by mistake. So obviously we're going to go out and we're going to give each game our all. We were fortunate that we had England and Austria in the recent World Cup qualifiers. Austria might be our main focus to try to get a result from. Like, both games that we played them, they were really tough battles. And just unfortunate, the last game they beat us to the curb. So I think we're going to be going into that game with a bit more fire in our bellies, because we want to prove that we could maybe beat the likes of Austria and, like, get a result from them. And again, maybe with Norway, that there will be an important point for us, because it'll show from how well from where we started, it'll be a good baseline to see how far we've come. And I think that's exciting for us too, because there's no better team than Norway to compare that to.
Yeah, I think probably for you, it's first game in the tournament, first game for them. So you both, it depends. Some teams start off very well in the tournament. Some teams start off slowly. Let's hope that it's Norway that start off slowly.
I hope so too.
You then got Austria as a second game. So actually, maybe the way it's fallen in the group is kind of in your favour as well.
Yeah, because I'm hoping that England will tire Austria out a wee bit after that first game. So
yeah,
we'll hope for that there too.
I'm pretty sure. So I think so. All of your games are in St Mary's at Southampton.
Yep.
Pretty sure that I think Northern Ireland have sold about 10,000 tickets. I know for the England game. Tell me about that. Your England Northern Ireland game at Wembley. I know, unfortunately, I planned to go and last minute couldn't make it, but I know at the time that was a.
Yeah.
Maybe that was you. Maybe that was your national stadium.
Yeah.
Maybe that was your celebration to some extent in terms of qualifying. Was that how you read it at the time?
I think, for me personally, that game was probably the highlight of my career. I think it kind of gave people something to look at, because at that point I was still in college, and a lot of teams probably were like, well, she's in America, she's probably, like, I wasn't really on the map, and I was fortunate to go out in Wembley and put in a good performance, and I think that gave a lot of people something to look at and got me to where I am today. And as a team, it was good. Like, I don't think a lot of people can say they went and played England in Wembley and held them for 60, 65 minutes. It's just, with England, they're next level, and they're only one team that can sub out quality for quality. So they subbed out, brought in an amazing player who made a difference in the game and got the goals. So
yeah,
it was just one of those things. But I mean, to play against England, like, they're amazing, and as much as I hate to say it, that they're good, because I'm Northern Irish. I don't like to admit.
You said it earlier on. It's the home nation challenges, isn't it?
I don't like to admit that England are good, and like, they always say anyone but England, and we're kind of like that. But they are a good team, and we do respect them.
I think for me that game was a bit of a taster of maybe what's going to come this summer. It got a huge amount of publicity in Northern Ireland, got a lot of exposure in England. It was live on TV, prime time. It was, for me, it was a precursor. Obviously, I had a vested interest. You were a gloveglu athlete, and therefore it was great to see it. As I said, unfortunately, I couldn't make it. So for me, it was a bit of an appetizer. It was as to what's going to come. And as you say, the interesting thing is, it was a great showcase for you. It was a great shot window for you. You had a great game. And what came out of that? What happened?
This.
Here we are. So talk me through the BK Hacken story. Here we are. I'm still trying to pronounce it, but maybe do you pronounce it better than me?
BK Hacken.
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 BK Hacken.
Hacken.
Which you were telling me earlier means what? Hedge.
Hacken means hedge, and the BK stands for ball club.
Okay.
So
ball club. There are a few hedges around him. It's a beautiful setting on the edge of Gothenburg.
Yeah.
How?
Again, it's a crazy story. Yeah, I was in Spain with the Northern Ireland team, and one of the girls had come up to me and she's like, oh, like, her agent was like looking to know about what my availability was, and I was like, well, I don't really know, like, I have this plan for building up to the Euros, but, well, it just depends what happens. And she says, oh, well, he's kind of asking if you'd be interested in the club in Sweden. And at that point I was like, well, I knew Sweden was very good for their football, especially the women's football. Like, their national team's amazing. Like, definitely top team in Europe. Definitely be qualifying for this Euros in the summer. And so at that point I was like, all right, that sounds interesting. Yes, that could be something to look into. So got through a bit of information, and then a few days later she'd asked me had I thought about it, and I'd said, yeah, well, I don't see why listen to what they have to say. So she passed on my information to her agent, and then he called me, and then I think it was a Friday or Saturday he called me, and then the Sunday morning I was talking with the club and trying to figure out if I was best suited for the club and how they work, and I was like, okay, well, sounds pretty interesting, yeah. And they were giving me the plan because obviously I had a big summer to plan for, and like what they could offer me and how I'd be in my best position to be for that summer. So they told me what was going to happen, and I was like, right, yeah, it was really appealing, and they have the best keeper in Sweden here, so I think that there was definitely something that really changed my decision, because if I'm training with the best, then it'll get me in the best position I'm in. So hearing she was here, I was like, why not? So I think the Sunday they were like, yeah, they were interested, and then Monday, at this point I was still at home, and then I had to fly back to America because I was still technically in school, and I was flying on Tuesday, and by the Monday night I was kind of told my mum, I think I'm going to be going to Sweden soon. And so I flew back to America on the Tuesday and had sort of agreed with the club I needed 10 days, 2 weeks to get myself sorted, because I still had my life out in America and I had to sort out a few things there. So they gave me that. I got 10 days, and by the start of March I was flying from America to Sweden to start a new chapter on my football journey. So
I mean, fantastic. I mean, what a great story, and how exciting was that? I suppose maybe the fact that you'd been in the US for a while, it wasn't this leaving home and leaving Northern Ireland. You'd been in the US, so maybe at the next chapter. But what an exciting chapter! I mean, it's for the size of the club it is. We had a great game last night, and the hospitality was fantastic. The training facilities are great. You made your debut last night, so we timed this trip perfectly.
Yeah, we really did.
It's a fascinating story, and something tells me we're just really at the beginning. How do you see it panning out? How would you like it to pan out over the next
I don't really
5
know.
years? You're 27 now. You're coming
25.
up. You're 25
now.
now.
Years
I'm sorry, I've added 2 years onto you. Sorry about
Do I
that.
look 27?
You're 25 now. You're 25 now. You might have another 10 years, maybe more.
Jeez.
How does the story, how does the fairy tale plan out?
I don't know, because if you'd asked me a year ago, was I going to play professional football, I might have said, I don't know, because it's one of those things, you either get spotted or you don't, and I think I was more thinking in my head, I was like, right, you have to be realistic. Like, I was like, you can't over like be ambitious about this, because yeah, it would be great, like playing football for your career is amazing, but it's like you have to think about reality, and you're like, right, well, if you don't get spotted, then you might not have anything. So I think I was more thinking down the line, if it happens, it happens. If not, well, this is what I want to do. So at that point, I was kind of thinking, right, once I finished America, maybe go into coaching. So I was more going down the route, I'll go into coaching and see what happens there. I know my coach out in America, he was very supportive of that, and he was willing to help me stay there and maybe try get a job in a different college or find a way over in America, because I like the lifestyle out there so much. And he says, well, we'll try to get you to stay here as much as we can. So he was supportive of that. And then again, it's just one of those things where the stars were aligned, and it just happened that I was able to get spotted, and I was fortunate enough that it wasn't such a good time in my life. So I think looking forward, again, it's still unpredictable of what can happen. Like, I could maybe leave at some point, but I think all being well, it would be nice to continue playing football, and maybe, don't know, it just depends where I'll be playing it. That's the only thing. Like, I think I've talked about that with a few of the girls. It's kind of a short-term thing. Like, you don't know where you'll end up. Like, I know some of the girls already, they've been in France, they've been in England, and now they're here, and they don't even know where they're going to end up next. So I think it's a bit hard to know exactly where I'll end up, but if I was being ambitious and I really wanted to say where I wanted to go, I would go back to America.
Would you? Which again, the setup is great. You know, it's why not? You know, you know the country.
But then again, the English in England, it's only starting to, and it's definitely getting a lot bigger. So even if it could end up, it could be in England.
I think it's a moving feast, isn't it? I think we said it before. If you are the pioneers of your generation, particularly in Northern Ireland, then there is no set roadmap at the moment. You're kind of making it up as you go along, and I get that, and I think to some extent the development of women's soccer is also, you know, as we said, in its infancy. You've potentially got another 2 Euros in your career, maybe another 3 after this. You maybe potentially got another 2 or 3 World Cups. Northern Ireland in a World Cup. Yeah, that's a great ambition, huh? If the side develops and grows.
Yeah, I mean, after we played Austria at home, we kind of had a bit of a what if this happened? So it was kind of one of those things again. We had went into the Austria game, we knew that they were strong, and then we came out with a draw at home, and we were like, we could maybe go to Austria and get a result and then go into playoffs again. And that actually came like a thought for us. Like, we're like, what if we went and beat Austria? Like, we could go to playoffs and maybe go to a World Cup.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of had that sight for us already going into this World Cup qualifying, and we're just unfortunate we got beat to the post by Austria in the last game. But it's one of those things now. After we qualify for the Euros, it's not like it's a one-time thing. Like, we want to make it a regular thing, and I think going forward, like, maybe qualifying for the World Cup could be another stepping stone and something to look forward to if it was to happen. Like, I don't think it's one of those things where it sounds impossible anymore.
Yeah,
like, it definitely is.
It feels closer, doesn't it? And I think that's right. You go through a tournament, you're going to go through the Euros. Everybody's going to get more experience. Everybody's going to learn from that experience, whatever it turns out to be. Listen, I'm really excited about it. It's great to be involved with you from a gloveglu perspective as one of our key athletes and our number one athlete in the Euros this summer. So I wish you the best of luck. Thank you for being so hospitable over the last few days. It's really been a great journey. Thank you, Jackie Burns.
Thank you.
Was the Goalkeeping Podcast.
I hope you've enjoyed the content. If you'd like to become a better goalkeeper, then check out developinggoalkeeping.com, where you'll find podcasts, tips, videos, and more.